Welcome everyone to the Nationals Under 9 Championship 2026. On your screen are two talented youngsters of Indian chess. On the left is Viaansh Bhatnagar, he's on 7 out of 8. And on the right is Ayaansh Singh, who is on 7.5 out of 8. This is round 9, and Ayaansh is playing an amazing tournament. Viaansh calmly pushes his pawn to d4. Let's see what Ayaansh responds back with. He brings his knight out to f6. Indian national championships have for long found amazing talents, and under 9 top board in round 9 is always exciting because it's a 11 round event. However, if Ayaansh manages to win this game, he would be on 8.5 out of 9, which is a fantastic score. Meanwhile, Viaansh goes for the London system. He places his trust in this opening, which is now very well known. On the other hand, Ayaansh goes for a very solid setup. Whenever you put your pawns on e6 and d5, you are controlling the center. Yes, you are blocking your own bishop, but on the other hand, your knight comes out, your bishop comes out, you castle, and then you can decide about your c8 bishop. Knight comes out to c6. I like how both the boys are calmly making their moves on the board. And here Viaansh plays bishop d3. Well, I guess more nuanced is knight d2, so that you keep your options open of going bishop b5 as well. But okay, this is normal bd6 played by Ayaansh, and Viaansh goes bishop to g3. The point here is, if you take the bishop, I'll take with the h pawn, opening up my rook. So h6 is played here by Ayaansh Singh, and now knight to d2, bringing the knight in the center. He takes on d4. Maybe that move was not so necessary, but I do get it. E takes d4 makes a lot of sense. He takes it. E takes d4. And now we have a structure which is very interesting. This is known as the Carlsbad structure, where black has these pawns here in the center and the king side a majority, while white has a queen side majority. And we have ideas like b5, b4, which is known as the minority attack. Meanwhile, the e5 square is where you want to put your knight in as white. Ayaansh plays rook e8. He brings his rook into the game. But now, this is a little bit inaccurate. He should have taken here, because now Viaansh can put his knight on e5. I don't know if he'll do that. He goes rook e1. Once again, giving an option for his opponent to take on g3, which now Ayaansh does it. Bishop takes g3. And you take back with the h pawn. Yes, h takes g3. So one of the key ideas for white is to put a knight on e5, bring the other knight to f3, b6 played here, which is logical because you want to get your bishop out. I don't know if the bishop is doing much on this diagonal, but okay, it's something. And now queen e2. That's a nice little move, improving the position of the queen, controlling a6, also controlling the central square. Knight goes back to d7. And he plays his bishop to b5. A very, very interesting strategic idea now that Viaansh is trying here. So he sees that black's bishop is not particularly great. So he goes on a very direct idea of taking on c6. Well, maybe objectively, according to the engines, this is not the best, but just think about it. What he's doing positionally makes a lot of sense. He's playing this, and he's saying that essentially after takes, knight takes, d takes e5, he would have a very nice knight that could settle in on d4 against a bad bishop. But here, there's a chance for Ayaansh to go d4 and activate his bishop. He has 1 hour 20 minutes, but Ayaansh plays this move a little too quickly. He plays b5, keeping his bishop passive. And I think that gives Viaansh the thing that he was looking for, knight b3, stopping the d4 move, and also the knight looks now at c5. Queen comes to b6. And usually when you have such good control of the center, you want to start pushing on the king side with g4, g5. But there is counterplay coming in with b4, which is what Viaansh stops with a3. He plays his pawn to a3. And now Ayaansh goes a5. So gains space on the queen side. And you have knight to d4. Well, black has to realize that strategically he is in bit of trouble, and giving up a pawn is not a bad idea, like AB, knight c6 takes, and cb4, because these pawns are weak. But instead Ayaansh goes bishop d7. He keeps his bishop away. He wants to play b4 next, but look at Viaansh. I think one of the things that I see in Viansh's play is that he's trying to stop his opponent's ideas. He stopped b4, but actually he hasn't stopped it. b4 is possible. Oof. The electricity goes away for a bit and it's back. Rook c8 played. And he pushes his pawn to b4. Now this looks like a nice move because you stop black from going b4. But here's the point. After pawn takes, if you play c takes, rook c4 is strong, black gets counterplay, and a takes is met with take, queen c7 attacking c3 and e5. So black would have gotten very good counterplay, but instead a very big strategic error to play pawn to a4. King h1 played by Viansh, like pawn to a4. Now the problem is you put your rook on e3, you play f4, you bring your other rook maybe to c1 and slowly start pressing on the king side, and Ayaansh doesn't really have counterplay. He goes rook c4, he has a bad bishop. Well, the only thing that you do have here is the c3 weakness. But that one weakness is not enough. Like you could double down on it as you are doing here, but I'll simply defend it with rook e3. And if you put even more pressure, I goes rook c1. And once you have rook to e3, rook on c1, he goes queen c7, then you're simply going to start expanding on the king side. Rook e3, good move. Viansh has things under control. Also, these youngsters play very quickly. 56 minutes for Viansh, 1 hour 6 minutes to Ayaansh. Rook d3, just improving the position. White is in no hurry because black really can't do too much. g6 played. I think one plan that comes to mind is first to improve the king's position and then go for the g4 break. That seems like the most logical way to continue. He goes king g1, queen comes to b6. Now you have to be careful about some tricks with rook c3 and this pin here, but there are none. So king f2, nicely done. Viansh brings his king to better squares. And you know, one idea could very well be to go on a nice king walk. King here, 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 here. And that could be possible. To just put your king on b2 where it defends these pawns. But he decides to move his knight away, which is slightly surprising. I'm not sure. Maybe he was afraid that black would go h4, which is why he brought his knight back. And now rook e4. Ayaansh says, I'm getting a bit of counterplay. Rook e3, offering a trade of rooks. And maybe the other rook can enter in with rook c4. He goes queen to b6, pinning the rook here, and you need to block it. Knight d4. Yes, knight comes to d4. Tough decision for Ayaansh is whether to take on e3. No, he decides to let white take on e4, and thereby pawn would come to e4. So rook e4, d takes e4. The pawn comes one step ahead, and queen e3. So he attacks the pawn on e4. And queen b7 defends it. One of the plans that you can go for, rook h1. And you can see there, this could be a dangerous idea. g4, hg, f5. And you take here queen h6, and I'm already mating you. So queen c8 played. First attacking c3. So knight e2 makes a lot of sense. And he brings his knight back. And now how to play against this g4 idea? He goes queen f8, and he says that this is not going to be easy, but still g4, hg, and now calmly queen g3 and take this and bring your queen in. But Viaansh goes in the other direction. He goes rook d1, queen comes to c8, and you have the open d file. Maybe you open another front, but he goes for an exchange, and this exchange maybe is fine, but I guess keeping the rooks would have kept the attacking chances alive for white. White is still very much better practically speaking. Okay, you take here. Now taking with the queen or the knight is necessary. If you take with the pawn, black queen enters in. So queen takes d4 taken. Bishop comes to c6 defending the pawn. If an opportunity is given, you want to play e3 check, activating the bishop. And so Viaansh going for the queen, he plays queen c5. I think maybe good or bad, you can still give up the pawn to activate your bishop here. But instead he goes queen b7. And now a good move here is king e3. I don't know if Viaansh would play it. He's going for the king. And it's a dark square versus light square strategy here. White playing on the dark squares and black playing on the light squares. Bishop comes back to d7, and you can jump in with the knight to d4. A very tough position for black to defend. The good news is that Ayaansh does have more time on the clock, and he looks very calm. He plays king g7, and for Viaansh to make progress might not be the easiest, but he goes c4, and that is actually a nice move. He's created his own passer. B takes c4, queen takes c4, and now queen b6, keeping a pin here makes sense. But he plays f5, and that is a big mistake, a huge mistake here. I mean, you could get tempted to take here, but then after takes, queen a7, black is doing completely fine. So taking this pawn is not the right thing. En passant is the right move, or b5. But I think first en passant, and that is what Viaansh does. A good move. He doesn't get tempted into winning this pawn. King takes, and now b5. Very important move. He plays queen c5, and then he's just basically taken control of this diagonal. He's going to play b5 next. King comes back to f7. Now it's all done. Viansh plays b5. He has complete control on the position. And Ayaansh is in trouble. There's nothing much he can do. He's trying to run with his king. But look at this idea. Just knight c6, threatening mate in 1. If you take with the bishop, I take with the queen. We go into a pawn endgame where even if you try to win this pawn, my king simply gets in and rounds up all the pawns. What I like here is Viansh's calmness. He knows that he's winning here, but he calmly calculates it and then simply brings his knight to c6, threatening mate in 1. Ayaansh decides to go bishop c8, and now a very powerful move is queen d4, threatening a check here or a check on h8. He goes queen d6. No, he's thinking he goes queen d6. So he is going for this check. But this gives a small opportunity for black to still survive. Hang in there. Queen d7. It's not really an opportunity, but I also like the time usage of Viansh. He's come down to 15 minutes, but he has a winning position. And one of the skills of a very mature player is that they don't rush when they are winning. And they are calm. Queen takes d7. King takes d7. And now king e4. And if you try to win back material with this pin, I simply go king e5, takes, and king e6, and white is completely winning here. So king comes to d6. And calmly played king d4. We have bishop b7. If you move the knight, g2 falls, but you don't need to. King c4. So that if king takes, king b4, and this is hanging. So g5 played. Ayaansh trying badly to get some counterplay, but in doing so, he's giving white a very strong passer on the g file. And that's what Viansh takes. F takes g5 taken. e5 pawn push. And now just king d3 coming back to put the king on e4 square. King d5, and it's time for the g pawn to move ahead. He plays it pawn to g6. King e6 played, and boom, a knight fork there on the d8 square, and it's all over. The b7 bishop is falling. King f6. He takes it. And this has been an excellent display of positional chess by Viansh. And Ayaansh, well, he had some chances in the game to create counterplay, but overall was always under some pressure. King g5. Knight comes to e4. Checking and defending. I think this is what Viansh does really well. He is very prophylactic. Somehow it reminds me of young Karpov. Ayaansh resigns. Viansh is able to score a win, moves to 8 points out of 9, takes the lead in the tournament, and well, he could have very well won the event, but in the last round he lost his game to Ryan Michael Rosario, and that's how Viansh couldn't win the title, but a great victory here. And of course, Ayaansh, well, he could have found some better ideas here, but he's a great talent. And so is Viansh. These two youngsters, amazing players, and at such a young age showing such high skills of chess is amazing to see. Let's see what the future holds for both of them. For now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. I also like that both of them are arranging their pieces. They calmly shook hands, signed score sheets, and this is very cool to see. We see Gukesh at top level chess always arranging his board no matter whether he wins or loses, and now it's nice to see even the youngsters doing that. Hope you enjoyed the game. Take care.